All right, welcome everybody. My name is George Klippel. I'm the Director of Channel Sales here at LiveU, and today we have a really exciting session planned for you. It's a case study that we're doing with one of my good friends, Eric Wright from Qumu. And Eric, I'd like to welcome you to the Fireside Chat at NAB 2022.
Man, it's super exciting to be back to one of these things after 2 years, huh?
It really is. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about this case study. And we've got a nice audience here gathered around. You can come in and sit here if you want, sit in the seats. And I hope a lot of you are watching out there as well, because you're going to learn about a really nice case study that we worked on together. And Eric is the Director of Account Management, I think, if I said that right.
I am, yeah. I manage a small team of account managers under our Customer Success Group.
Excellent. Well, before we get into the case study, I'd like to ask you, if you could, for everybody out there, tell us a little bit about your background, and for those who may not know who Qumu is, a little bit about Qumu Corporation.
Sure, absolutely. Again, my name's Eric Wright. I'm the Director of Account Management. I've been with Qumu over 5 years, but I've been in the industry over 20. I've worked primarily in the enterprise throughout my career, and I've been pretty happy with the work that you and I have been working on in the last year or so looking forward to go through that. Qumu itself is a content management. We're all about video. We're content management, streaming, and some of our real benefits are being able to securely deliver content at scale very reliably, and being able to replicate that over and over. So yeah, we've been in business, I believe, almost 15 years, and we really enjoy our enterprise customers.
Well, yeah, and that's one we're going to talk about today, a really huge enterprise customer. And by the way, I put you in charge of switching the slides, and you need to do that now.
I will do that.
Yes, and one more time. I think you have to click. There it is. Good job. Nice job. So Eric is...
so much pressure.
Yeah, that is a lot of pressure, slide switching. But... yeah, it's really interesting, the case study that we're going to talk about today, because not only is it a huge enterprise customer, but LiveU, as you know, and it's all over the website, and we're doing it here at the show, we're really moving to the cloud. And this is one of these workflows that we came up together with that is a hybrid workflow that really focused on the cloud and also that hybrid design that we came up with. And I think it was really important for this customer that we looked at it in that fashion, right? And then I think you kind of had that idea from the start, right? Before we dive into that, that was something that it was really important to them, was that cloud type of environment, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And a little bit of background on kind of how we became where we are today between LiveU and Qumu is a large auto manufacturer actually brought me to your attention and said, hey, we're using this LiveU company because we've had some issues with connectivity on the firewall in our corporate environment. And I said, wow, that's pretty interesting. And they were going through an entire refresh after an HQ move. So, that's how I found you. And that kind of led into the next thing, which was it was kind of the perfect storm with the pandemic coming in. You already had a good customer base as far as, we have a couple other mutual customers, but that big auto manufacturer really brought us together and allowed us to really fill a gap. So one thing that we'll talk about is, we can control essentially content management, we can control the distribution, we can control security, we can do all of the analytics. The problem that we have is we really can't control that first mile and that last mile. So when customers are creating content, one of the real challenges that we face is, how are they creating that content? And a lot of that time, it's whether it's live or on demand, it needs to be connected, and it needs to be connected to a cloud service. And the fact that you guys have a cloud service and we have a cloud service was a really good marry position there. I think we're kind of moving in the same. Moving parallel to each other to where we're driving our solutions, and that's for us, having LiveU come in and actually take that first piece, that first mile, was really important, because now our customers can reliably at scale from anywhere at any time be able to create content, push it to our cloud solution, and get it to where it needs to go very reliably.
Yeah, no, and I think you mentioned the car manufacturer. When we first heard of Qumu, I'd never heard of Qumu, but my fault, of course. But when that car manufacturer talked to us, it was really enlightening to see how our solutions work together, and somebody coined the phrase "better together," and I think LiveU and Qumu it is really a solution that is better together, and it's proven itself out, especially in this case study. So let's take a look at this case study. There you go. You did the slide change. Great job, Eric.
I'm getting better.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the case study that we worked on, and we're not allowed to say the name of the customer, but we could say
Fortune 4 healthcare services company, based out of Rhode Island. How's that?
There you go. That sounds pretty good.
Okay.
So let's start with the challenges that we had to deal with when we talked to
Sure.
them.
Yeah, so this is a customer that, a longtime customer, was an on-premises solution. We have an on-prem solution called Video Control Center. We also have a cloud solution called Qumu Cloud. We had recently moved their entire environment over to the cloud solution. So the big challenges that they had was not only working remote under the pandemic, but also a pretty large infrastructure, which we'll review in a second. But the problem was replicating over and over and over and being able to basically do the same thing, because we're talking about executive events mainly when we started. So how do I get to scale? How do I be able to replicate the same workflows? How do I ensure success no matter where that takes place? So they needed the high quality. The idea of Zoom or Teams was never appealing. They were doing some WebEx with pinning, and it was really not the best way to do things. Also being able to do things remotely, because they have two major facilities here in back in the Northeast, and they needed to be able to control things remotely, which they couldn't do, cameras and teleprompters, etc. And it needed to be it had to have the redundancy. So if the network fails, or if the encoder stops us, as we know, these are boxes, so they tend to, they can have time problems. But they needed to also have a really good, easy to produce for their producers. If it's too hard, then people will find the easy way.
And no one will use it.
Nobody wants to use it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and show the kind of their pre-LiveU environment. So if you look at this is. I've coined this phrase over my career because I used to work with Cisco products. It's called a Frankenstack. So what you have here is a bunch of high vision encoders, multiple levels of business class internet. Those are coming from executives' offices. They could come from the corporate environment. Encoders, decoders. You start talking about Cisco endpoints, because you need to be able to bridge people together someplace. And then you start doing mixing around TriCasters and the like. So it does become kind of unmanageable. And there's so many points of failure in this workflow that when we saw it, we were actually kind of in awe that this was deployed. Because I don't know, how do you troubleshoot when you can't get video?
Right, and this is the definition of hard, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a nightmare for them, and they said to us, as a partner and our relationship with the client, they came back and said, hey, we trust you. Tell us what we can do to be better. How can we get this to work, whether it's at home, whether it's in the office, or if it's at a Hilton or a Sheraton? Because as we know, there's those challenges of being able to produce remotely, and LiveU was the logical choice, not only because you're a cloud solution, which they're moving to essentially, most infrastructure today is moving to the cloud, but also the ability to kind of take this, drop it into the executives' offices, do all that remote work, being able to not rely on the networks, because literally they're dropping dark fiber. Most of these corporations do. They drop dark fiber to their executives, and they have people reviewing it, looking at it all the time. And I mean, our executive calls, when they were monitoring calls, were people from Cisco, people from the ISPs. I mean, there were people everywhere reviewing, like, oh, bandwidth looks good, WebEx looks great, and it just turned into with 50 people on a call, for a town hall. So what we were able to do is actually take this.
Well, before you go there too, this was during the pandemic as well, right?
Yeah.
And so this infrastructure that we're looking at and talking about was really all about an infrastructure that was in the facility, right? And some of this, now what we were looking at and trying to really dissect was to get this workflow to be a reliable workflow remotely as well now, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the idea is, going back to the office, I think most people would agree it's like a 60-40 today. So you're going to have 60% of the people probably go back to the office at some, whether that's some hybrid, but 40 will never see an office again unless they're showing up for some meeting.
Right.
So the executive team for this company was, hey, I need the quality at home. This idea of we're doing WebEx, to get scale, we lose quality. I need this to, and then when you start talking about the production team, they're like, hey, I need to be able to do this from my home because I'm not going to go into the office, whether it's, Rhode Island or Hartford. So, how do I get this, be able to do the same work out of my home that I would do in a traditional office setting?
Well, let's show them what we did.
Yeah, so essentially what we did was we scrapped the entire, we had to come up with the art of the possible. And that's where, this is where we streamline the entire process between two platforms. What's not shown in here, of course, mics and cameras and that type of thing. But what we're able to do is actually take the LiveU LU800s. They have those not only sitting in the executives' offices, but also back at the corporate offices as their basic encoders. They've lost a couple of events due to poor internet behind the firewall, so this solves that issue. You'll also see we built in the LiveU LU2000 for an on-prem solution in case they do have connectivity issues.
Yeah, for backup, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
This makes sense. And plus, when you look at this slide too, right, it's much cleaner, right? So
two next to choke.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but
yours to mine.
And it's a cleaner slide. So just by the cleanliness of the slide, it just in fact is just much easier to use, right?
Exactly.
There you go. That's how you measure it. Clean slide,
Right.
Easy to use. It's a win-win.
Exactly, and when you look at this, it solves a number of problems. One is that first, as we talked about, that first mile, which is the creation, redundancy, resiliency, and the ability to have high quality and be able to replicate. But also, it actually solves another problem, which is we don't want a bunch of infrastructure. In this case, we only have infrastructure for redundancy. It's not there as a core. The core is the LiveU Central and Qumu Cloud. So essentially, I'm taking a LiveU 800, pushing content to the mixer. The mixer goes up to your decoder, over to Qumu Cloud. We ingest it and we distribute it.
Right, and I think one of the most important things is that in this case, right, we're allowing the CEO, the C-level executive, to have an insert studio in their home. They have the LU800 sitting there with a single camera or multi-camera input. It sends it into the LiveU cloud environment. We pass that along using LiveU Central, and then it goes to Qumu Cloud, and it's a perfect seamless workflow. But as you mentioned as well, we have the LU2000 or the 4000 server, either one, as a backup redundant workflow that can feed into a TriCaster, into the mixer, on-prem environment, so they could add graphics, do other things if they wanted to in that type of workflow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the huge benefit for this was, it's something for the CEO to sit in her office and have teleprompter, have lighting, have the return video. So when she's not producing the content, she's able to see what's going on. She's able to speak to a producer on the back end. So it is, it's a production in a box. It's a production facility in a box. Literally roll it out, plug it in, turn it on, and everything's managed externally. So she doesn't have to know anything. She just needs to show up and present.
Right, and then the other important piece about this, when you look at the whole architecture, is the LiveU Central piece is a web-based application.
That's right.
And that was huge for this particular client and most all of our clients, because as a web-based application, you're able to access it anywhere in the world, and any of the technical team can help configure the unit, start and stop the unit, the encode, and actually do all of the management of the piece. And that was also important because you also have a cloud-based interface as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So LiveU, our Qumu Cloud is full, browser-based platform. All we need is an RTMP stream, and we're off and running. And a majority of our clients have gone that direction from an on-prem. I mean, we still have a pretty good entrenched for specific reasons. LiveU Central works with both our cloud and on-prem, so it really works within our model.
And then when they push it to Qumu Cloud and they get the asset there and it finally comes through, then it hits your player, and basically then the asset goes out to X, right?
Yeah, so the uniqueness of our platform is whether it's behind the firewall, we have solutions that we work with both partners as well as our own. So we have edge caching servers behind the firewall called Pathfinder Edges. Those will reduce bandwidth on the network, allow you to get scale. So instead of, most companies don't do multicast anymore, very expensive, very complex. So with caching servers, it allows us to location-based route traffic and limit this amount of bandwidth that's being used on the network. Externally, we do use a world-class CDN provider with Cloudflare. So that's it's a global solution. It runs about 15% of the internet, I believe, this today. And we're Google based, so we're pretty standards across the board. When you talk about Qumu and where we can manage that content, as I said, and we have the tools through like partners like Collective and our own caching environment to be able to get it to where it needs to go when and securely.
And on average, when we finished the solution, it came out they're serving how many people usually per stream that they're putting out?
There's about 30,000.
Yeah, it's huge
per stream. Yeah,
so.
And then we're also seeing a lot more of the what you call LiveU Live, where they're doing pre-production and then essentially coming back doing moderated Q&A. So that also plays back into Qumu and LiveU's relationship, because you guys do a lot around on demand. So it's when I coined the phrase "better together," we are better together because you have that first mile. We'll manage 90%. Beyond that, then there's the only place that we still have challenges is, during a pandemic, I had 2 kids on Netflix, which really ate all my bandwidth. So there's nothing I can do about that. So, but behind the firewall and corporate environment and stuff, we're pretty good.
Wait a minute, there is something you could do about it. You can get a LiveU and use Data Bridge, and then you could put that in your house, and you can watch all the Netflix you want.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, you coined the phrase "better together."
I did.
I think you got to trademark that.
I am going to.
I'm going to take that.
That's fine. That's fine.
All right, go to the next slide. Then.
Okay.
No, I think we have a few minutes left, and we have some people in the audience, so we can open it up for some Q&A. We'll repeat the questions if anybody has any questions here, so the audience at home watching can hear the questions as well. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Raise your hand if you do. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Sure. So the question is, could I explain briefly how the LiveU bonding technology works? So the LiveU bonding technology works this way. We have multiple modems that are in our LiveU products, depending which product that you get, the LiveU LU300S or the 800. And we also have Wi-Fi and Ethernet built into those products as well. And we have an exclusive technology that's patented called LiveU Reliable Transport, or LRT. And that takes all those modems and Ethernet and Wi-Fi and puts them together and makes essentially a big fat pipe to the internet. And that's what the bonding technology is. It makes those modems and Ethernet and Wi-Fi work together to make the biggest, most reliable connection you can have to the internet. So that's a great question, and that's what the bonding is all about. And in this case, in this particular case study, it really helps out and helped our customer out in any situation. And it's great for when you're especially remote somewhere where you don't have Ethernet or anything else plugged in. Great question.
Yeah, and the big benefit there is back to our redundancy, is that when the Ethernet or your LAN or WAN goes down, it automatically kicks over to your Wi-Fi. So you don't lose. In most cases today, if you lose internet on an encoder, you're done.
Exactly.
That's the end of your presentation. So in this case, it just allows us to have that redundancy.
Yeah. Any other questions from anybody? Don't be shy. It's only a live feed. Yes. Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question is how did I know that George and I would be such good friends? Seriously, how did we know that this was a good relationship that we should foster? And really, it came back to, we're talking about an industry leader, and the auto manufacturer, essentially told me that if we didn't have them, it was not going to be we were stupid not to do it. So in doing some investigation and understanding that where you guys find yourselves in the market, where we are in the market, and understanding that, yeah, we sold encoders, but we sold boxes, and those boxes didn't give us or didn't lend us any redundancy or any capabilities beyond what the average encoder allows. So LiveU for me was kind of a no-brainer. You have a cloud solution, we're a cloud solution. You have hardware that allows us to 99.9% ensure that a customer is going to have a successful solution. So it was kind of a no-brainer once we got the conversation started.
Yeah, it's been great so far. So, well, that's going to do it. I think, Eric, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you, everybody here in the audience, and all of you watching online. And listen, don't forget, stay tuned. We have a lot of events and a lot of live shows and these fireside chats coming up throughout the whole week. We've got other vendors like Avid and Bird Dog and New Tech, product demonstrations, a whole lot of stuff coming your way. So keep it tuned in to watch right here from NAB 2022. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.